As I sit here late in the evening on this Wednesday night, awaiting this massive hailstorm in Seattle area, something that may wreak havoc around the entire area, or like typical Seattle weather predictions, it could fall apart completely and not happen. That's what happens here. So in this evening, before the power possibly will go out and before the hail balls smash the windows and the cars in the neighborhood and car alarms go off, I'm going to sit here with my whiskey, showcasing some records. Now, this is primarily centered around one record that came out, and I'm going to talk about a few records around it because there's a theme I pulled together based on this record, not musically, but thematically of the concept. This is a reissue that came out just very recently out of the UK by Neil Ardley. This is called Harmony of the Spheres. This was released originally in 1979. Now, this is an album and an artist I was not familiar with. I vaguely heard his name. I know he's a British jazz artist, and this album really crosses into that funky fusion thing. Now, what's interesting about this, a couple things. I like to support independent small labels when it's something really interesting. This is one of those all analog audiophile recordings, but in this case, it's done in the UK by Gearbox Studios, who mastered this. And I keep hearing, day in, day out, when we show those Rhino hi-fis and others, and a lot of the British and European people say, why can't we get those records? They're expensive to ship, or the label's not putting them out. It's great that there are a few only at this point, labels in the UK putting out all analog releases. Now, I'm not one, who watch me. I just want it to sound good. I don't really care about the source, but this is one of those records that's done carefully, beautifully, independently. Analog October Records is a record company. The owner, the restoration guy, Craig Crane, put this together and did an exquisite job. Now, last year, his first release on his label, and he has a record store too in the United Kingdom, it was Courtney Pines, and this is Journey to the Urge Within. I'm not going to go heavily into this. These were only editions of 500, I believe. I think this one may still be in print. I'm going to put a link below. Since this is an independent label, I urge you to support these kind of labels so they can release more records. 500 copies, jazz record of saxophone, a British jazz artist. I didn't know this record. I'd heard of Courtney Pine. He put this out last year. This is an album originally recorded in 1986. This is a really beautiful record. Of course, the all analog, the careful restoration. All these have booklets. I won't get too much into this, but I'm going to start it with this record. And after this, I picked 4 other records that are kind of worldly, spacey type of records. I wanted to bring in the concept, Harmony of the Spheres, this sort of futuristic, visionary of fusion and jazz and science. And the other records musically have nothing to do with this, but just conceptually, I decided to pull those. They're not new releases. This is the record that I'm featuring, and then the other ones are sort of the appetizers and the aperitifs that will follow suit. You can play them in any order. Again, there will be a link below from the American distributor on the East Coast and directly to buy this. I believe it's around between pounds and dollars, anywhere from 40 to 45 pounds. And for all analog recording, when a label like this has to license it, that's pretty damn great, I think. But they restored the cover. This cover was originally done by that wonderful design team in the United Kingdom, Hypnosis. Of course, the Pink Floyd albums, Paul McCartney albums, 10cc albums, so many great conceptual covers. But here, Craig Crane and Tim Rogers carefully restored this cover, really rebuilt it from the photograph, recreated these spheres up here, and made this a beautiful, beautiful package. It's a single sleeve, but the album comes in a separate white sleeve, so hopefully you won't get any seam splits. It's the whiskey. And this was originally on Decca Records, in 1979. Again, a record I wasn't familiar with, of a jazz artist who really kind of morphed into this fusion-y, funky jazz rock genre here. What a beautiful record. Now, I played this, I think, 4 times by now, and I blasted it. You can really kick this up. A couple things musically. I found it really interesting. This is, I think, the first thing he really got into electronics and Moog synthesizer. There's a wonderful array of musicians, including, of course, Ian Carr on trumpet and flugelhorn. You got 2 voices. They're almost ethereal, like the Star Trek type of music on some of it, that swirling spatial type of thing. But this is a record about the galaxy and sounds and world, and it's a true all analog, cut from analog tapes in the United Kingdom record. Billy Christian on bass guitar, and there's a really funkiness to that. You also have Richard Burgess on drums, percussion, Trevor Tompkins on percussion, Barbara Thompson, a couple things with flute and soprano sax, and it's really wonderful. The surprise here for me, and a pleasant surprise, is John Martin, the kind of folky, esoteric Island Records recording artist. I saw him once. May You Never, Island Records, saw him on an all-island bill of Traffic Free and John Martin. I'm a huge fan of his with this kind of like just swampy vocals. Him. No, he doesn't sing on this, but he plays electric guitar, and there's some intense guitar solos on this. It's a sound that I'm not used to hearing of John Martin. Usually I hear his loops and his effects and his folky style, a little kind of freak folky thing, which I love. And so he's the big surprise on here. This is the back cover of the album. And as I said, there is a slip book in here. And this kind of puts some of these audiophile labels to shame. This is a heavy cardstock, of course, the obligatory master tape here. This was originally on Decca Records. This info, the whole details here on Gearbox. Instead of some separate promo sheet and a bunch of sheets stuck in like they put in all those other labels that do the audiophile box sets, you have one bound book here. An essay about Neil Ardley and this record. Music from a Different Orbit is the essay here. It talks about the intensity and the genesis of this album. But there is a whole legacy of albums based on looking at the stars and the planets, and whether it's love songs or space songs or classical music. This is something a little different. I was trying to think what this record reminded me of a little bit. Not exactly, but always try to put music and compare it to something else, just as a point of reference. To me, this reminded of that early 70s, mid-70s fusion, especially the album, the collaboration with Jan Hammer and Jeff Beck. Very kind of a funky fusion, electronic guitar-based thing. Of course, the synthesizers are the main thing, but when John Martin comes in the guitar, it gets a kick-ass thing. Most of the music seems to be in 4/4, except for the final track that mixes. Unlike prog records and some of those fusion records, the time signatures seem to be stable for the most part, again, except for that final cut. More of a 4/4 time. Again, I'm not the professional musician here. You may feel differently. Side 2, track 1, Soft Stillness and the Night. That's the most ethereal, ambient piece on here. And it just kind of, it's a flotation, a space floating ambient thing that I think is really kind of beautiful on here. I love that these independent labels, in this case like Analog October Records, is taking records that aren't reissued a lot. Again, I don't know the lineage of the other releases of this, but I've never seen this record. I can't believe I never saw this. So maybe it was more popular a little bit in the UK than it was here. But it seems like Analog October is going to continue doing at least 1 or 2 records a year. Mostly, I think, at this point in the jazz arena of British jazz. So that will be a great thing for a lot of people to discover. So links below to this. This is the ideal type of reissue that people lust for at a really fair price. Now, getting from America, I'm sure there's shipping costs still, but still, compared to a lot of the other things that I know about that come out even in this country, some of those one steps, and some of those in excess of $80 records. This is a good deal. So if you're into fusion, electronic jazz, space rock a little bit, and funkiness, this is the album from 1979 by Neil Ardley. And since we're on this case, this kind of inspired me to go through my collection, just pull a handful. And again, none of these records really relate, but one off the top, when I thought about space, I thought about jazz, I thought about Sun Ra. How can you not? This is a record, this is a comp record. I think this was issued in 2016 by Modern Harmonic. That was an offshoot of Sundazed Records in the United States. And I believe this is the first reissue they did of Sun Ra. And they've been working with the Sun Ra estate, getting all these great recordings that have been restored. Now, these are not all analog. These are fixed up and cleaned up by the archivist at the Sun Ra Space Exploration Depot. We know Sun Ra is from Saturn, so it fits right in here. And this cover art, this is what got me into it. This is a modern illustration, very influenced by those 1950s futuristic space magazines and books and science fiction novels from the day. But this is a comp going back from the 1950s to the mid-1980s, and this is all over the place, but it's really a fun record too. There is a lot of vocals on this. So you have some that standard, almost like big band, sultry jazz vocalists with these great female vocalists singing something you'd hear in a jazz lounge in the 1940s or 1950s, maybe a Billie Holiday or something. Then you got the out there gospel-like choirs or actual singers of Sun Ra himself and members of the band where they just kind of scream it out. There's a wide variety in here. So this is an interesting comp. This might be a good tasting. Again, we're talking about tastings around the main meal and the main course. Sun Ra and his Interplanetary Vocal Orchestra. So this is vocal based, but you get all the jazz instrumentation. The Space Age is here to stay. Sun Ra, Modern Harmonics. I believe this is still in print. I don't know. Double record. And it is a comp with tracks like Along Came Ra, Interplanetary Music #1. They do Round Midnight, so they do a couple standards here. Walking on the Moon. This song is dedicated to nature's God. Space is the place. The truth about planet Earth, and more for your liking. So Sun Ra on Modern Harmonic comp. You never know what you're going to get with Sun Ra, so that's a warning. So I have about 15 Sun Ra records, and they're all over the place. But it's fun stuff if you get into it. Now, this is a record I never listened to when it came out originally in 1972. This is a 2017 release on Verese Vintage. They do a lot of soundtracks and reissues, that label. It's most, what is it? Verese Sarabande is the main label, and this is a sub-label. This is 4 sides, and this is Zeit by Tangerine Dream with this solar eclipse on the cover. 1972. Now, this is considered either the first or one of the first dark ambient records of all time. This is Tangerine Dream's 3rd album. I believe this is the first album that Peter Baumann jumped in with the group on here, with Edgar Froese and Chris Frank. German, avant, krautrock, experimental. My favorite album of theirs, I think, is Rubicon. I love that record, but it wasn't quite as spacey as this. This is a beautiful record. This is like, there's also other artists on here, in fact. There's Florian Frick. We have a bunch of celloists. So this is a neoclassical, modern 21st, 20th century classical mixed in with very electronic ambient, very dark, very moody. Someone commented when I posted this on my Instagram, because I was playing this, and someone commented that apparently, I did not know this is Steven Wilson's favorite record of all time. You know Steven Wilson, the electronic music prog guy who does the surround mixes and remixes of a lot of prog records, as well as his own solo and band records. I did not know that at all. I like this record, but it is a dark, moody record. This would not be anywhere in my top 100 records, but it's a cool-ass record. And if you like ambient music and dark, somewhat droney, but really interesting, this is the one. So I wanted to follow through with this kind of planetary space exploration tonight before the balls of hail fall down on Seattle. Now let's go a little fun and funky, okay? This is a comp on Soul Jazz Records out of the UK. This came out in 2019. This is really fun. This is Space Funk, Afrofuturistic Electro Funk in Space, 1976 to 84. Think somewhat of Parliament Funkadelic going a little more disco and danceable, which they are anyway. This is a fun comp. I didn't know many of these artists. You have artists like Leo, the Sonorphonic. You have Santiago. You have Juju and the Space Rangers, Jamie Jupiter, Solaris. I don't know these artists, but I sure in hell love the funkiness of this record. This is a party record. This is a dance record, but this is just a feel-good record when you're drinking a whiskey, waiting for those balls of ice to fall down and massacre Seattle or something. But it's a great cover, too. Look at that cover. How great is that? I don't know what to say about this. Just a fun record. Don't know if it's still available. 7 Broderick Street, Soho, London. Grab this record for fun and entertainment. I love that I'm showing all these worldly records. So we got the UK. We got, well, Sun Ra. That is Saturn, so that's not any major country here. We got Germany. And of course, we got the funk from the UK. Finally, I'm going to go to Canada. I want to say something nice about Canada. We love you, Canada. I apologize for what's going on and why you're being picked on. You know, if there was a bully picking on a country, this would be it right now. Well, one of them. There's obviously a lot of shit is going on around the world, but I don't know why we're picking on Canada. I'm heading up there in the next 2 weeks, 2 hours away from me. Love you, Canada. But this is a record completely different. And I don't know why I thought of this immediately. This is probably this is anywhere close to those other albums in any form musically. This is the debut album by a band who wasn't the Beatles. This is Klaatu. Remember Klaatu Verada Nikto from The Day the Earth Stood Still? This is their debut album, just called Klaatu, with calling occupants of interplanetary craft. I can't believe the Carpenters covered this and had a massive hit on it. Now, this is the promo copy I got from the Capitol promo people in 1977. And I still have my press kit. This is the album where... Were they the Beatles? Is this the Beatles under a different name? Of course it wasn't. But Capitol sure went all in on these news articles. They did, perpetuating the rumor that this might be a secret record by the Beatles, the reformed Beatles, under a different name. Nobody I knew thought that. But they sure put this press kit together, and I still have it, thinking that, oh, wait a second. Are these the Beatles? Klaatu. Canadian band, like, to be honest with you, right off the bat, I can't remember the rest of the record, and I did listen to it a lot. I have their first 3 or 4 albums. I kept getting them as a Beatle collector. This is a fun record. It's a poppy record. There's a gimmick to it, but it's really a good record of the time, of 1977. This, again, is my promo copy, not a promo labeled record. But in those days, sometimes if they didn't do the promo sticker, they did the hole punch. They send the press kit calling occupants of interplanetary craft. Those Canadians sure know how to talk about space too. So that's it today, this evening. I hope I live to tell the tale and do more videos over the next days. In fact, by the time you're watching this, hopefully the storm will be over, because I'm recording this prior on Wednesday evening, and this will post either Thursday or Friday. Again, check this out. There will be a link below to the Neil Ardley record on here because it's kind of a cool record. Listen to it. I'm sure you can find it either there or Bandcamp or YouTube, possibly somewhere. Again, an artist I didn't know about. And it says here, recorded in the legendary Morgan Studios, produced by the esteemed Martin Levon, Harmony in the Spheres is another bold evolution of Ardley's ever-expanding musical journey, a unique blend of jazz, electronic synthesis, and progressive rock. The album explores the ancient Greek concept that planets create celestial harmonies as they move through space. Using precise astronomical calculations, Ardley transposed planetary orbits into a 9-note chord, one that extends beyond the range of traditional acoustic instruments, making synthesizers the only means of fully realizing the cosmic sound. I just realized I should have pulled Cosmic Sounds, the Zodiac, from 1967, that electronic record on Elektra Records. I have shown that here before. This is nothing like that, but that's it. Mazzy loves you.